Welcome to the Positive Growth Doctor podcast for women. I am your host, Dr. Christina Wilson. I created the Positive Growth Doctor after years of dealing with societal expectations, self-doubt, and perfectionism. I leveraged my 30 years of experience as a positive psychologist to address limiting beliefs and gain clarity through faith-based emotional wellness techniques rooted in mindset renewal and biblical truth. Subscribe to the podcast and check out the earlier episodes so you don't miss a thing. Let's get to it. Welcome to the Positive Growth Doctor podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Christina Wilson. So I have a question for you. If you removed your current titles, whether if it's a job, status, a role, any kind of title, would you still feel secure in your identity as a daughter of God? Yes. Our precious Father isn't interested in those things alone. He's not. It's all about loving one another as He commanded us to do. First and foremost, and your actions in life and the roles that you serve in, whether if it's wife, daughter, mother, friend, or what have you. You have likely heard that the things that we collect here on earth, you can't take them with you, right? For example, I am not going to be Dr. Wilson in heaven. But God expects me to do good with what I have while I'm here and in the roles that I'm in while I'm here. Now, years ago, I was contemplating a decision that I needed to make. It was an important one. And someone reminded me that there is only one question that you have to ask yourself. And that is, if I choose this, will it bring me closer to God? If not, then it's not for me. So think of this as a litmus test for life. It's my go-to, basically, when I'm unsure about something or even someone. So in this episode, we are prioritizing God in understanding the warfare of comparison. We also tackle the modern pressure to find identity in roles, like careers, social media status, the perfect life, rather than the creator. So find the full transcript for this episode on your favorite podcast app. And also, please share the podcast with other women to help them grow on their journey. And you can even go a step beyond that to reach even more women, which is amazing. And you can do this by simply leaving a review on Apple Podcast. I appreciate you. So here's another question for you to consider, okay? When you look at other women's lives, does it move you toward prayer and support for them, or toward a feeling of lack within yourself? Now, I used to get really self-conscious and unsure just about everything as I was growing up and as a young woman. I made the shift to leave all of that behind and dive into sharing love and support for other women. I'm truly excited when they achieve a milestone or, have blessings in their life. I love it. Now remember that God's plan for you is different from God's plan for me. We are called to different things in this life that He gave us. So, in terms of a spirit of comparison, social media creates a spiritual yardstick, if you will, where we measure our internal mess against someone else's highlight reel, which leads to a mindset of scarcity. And that's not good. The biblical principles here are coming from Matthew 6:33, seeking the kingdom first. So when God is a priority, things such as our choices, careers, accolades, they find their proper non-destructive place. And there's a place for those things. So ultimately, comparison dies when you fix your eyes on our amazing God. And you can't just look sideways at your neighbor if you're looking up at your Father, right? So, what is God calling you to do? You have to focus in on Him and spend quality time to hear from Him. If not, it's going to get confusing. So, I'm talking about those times when you're doing life without Him. Remember that? Or only inviting Him in at times. You must be consistent. And I've learned that the closer I am to God, the better I am to hear from Him directly. And this means that I dive into prayer and I dive into His Word consistently every single day. It's not a job to do that. It's not. Don't see it as a job. See it as a blessing. It's rewarding and it's beautiful to have that relationship with Him because that's all He wants is a relationship with you. Now, social media is not helpful because it distracts us. It distracts us from what matters the most. So as you're scrolling through Facebook, you collect more and more things to do. So have you noticed that? It's like keeping up with the Joneses or the Kardashians or whoever. You might think, oh, I need to start cooking these new recipes or doing meal planning. Maybe add travel ball for the kids because so-and-so's doing this and it looks like fun. Or I need to change the way that I work out. You end up adding more to your plate because it never feels like it's enough, especially when you're on Facebook. So one of the lies that women buy into is that they don't have enough time. Yet we all have the same amount of time every single day, every single week. Okay. Now, women believe that they can do it all because now they've got all these other things that they found on Facebook and they think, oh, I have to do that, right? But that is simply not true. I know. I've been one of them. Okay. You're not alone. I've been there. Nor can we be everything to everyone. Very important. So when you think you can, it leads to self-doubt. And then it rolls down the hill of burnout, which is even worse. Remember that King David sought out the Lord when making decisions several times. You can see this throughout the Bible. And he started his day off with God. Okay? And that is the best way to counter Satan. because Satan is the father of lies. We must stay rooted in his truth. Now, at the beginning of this year, I did a prayer challenge with other women um, on Zoom, and it was very, very early in the morning, and that was the best thing I've ever done. I loved it so much because I was starting off my day with God, and my day with God started out different. It ended up different based on that time we had together. It prepared me for the day. Okay. And it reminded me of his truth. It was very important. Now, if you think, oh, I don't have time for everything, oh, or if you think I have time for this or that, but if you think, okay, maybe I don't, because that seems like a lot, then you start to feel it, right? I don't have time for everything. Well, then what are you going to give up? Okay, because you can't do everything. Something has to give. And it's important that your plan does not supersede God's plan. Okay? So if you're not connected with God's plan, you will not only miss out on the joy and the peace that I was referring to in the last episode. So if you haven't checked that out, do. But also experience the consequences of choosing your own way, right? Which is often the easy route at the time, but ends up being even more difficult. So replace Satan's lies with God's truth. There's always time for what God has in store for you. He has perfectly laid it out in his plan. So there's no worries. You don't have to control it. Okay? He's got control over it. So he doesn't make mistakes and he prepares you along the way. So if you're concerned about the timing, he's not when when it's within his plan. He's not concerned with it. And he will find a way for you if it's coming from him. Now in Luke 10:38-42, that brings this point home to us, okay? Remember the story of Mary and Martha? Yeah, I know. I feel that heaviness too whenever I think about that story because it reminds us how Mary sat at the Lord's feet and she listened to his message when he came to their home and visited. But Martha wasn't. She was scurrying around, all distracted by being the hostess with the mostess, right? Y'all, I was a Martha for such a long time, and I catch myself doing it from time to time. I'm not going to lie. Martha got in her own way, and she couldn't hear Jesus's important message because she was too focused on her own work. So we bring glory to God when we relinquish control. Not easy, but it can be done. And we remove the self-focus and place the focus on him. Okay? Now, Martha was up to her ears in perfectionistic burnouts, and she wasn't walking in his truth. There's so much to learn in those moments, and she was missing out on it. So don't be a Martha and miss the boat on what God has for you. When we remember these things, our faith mindset falls into place. Now, I want to leave you with a verse to meditate on when it comes to making choices that are aligned with God's will. Okay? It is from Matthew 6:10. Your will be done. I hope this has helped. I do. And I look forward to our time together again next week as we wrap up this series. Have a blessed day. Thanks for listening to the Positive Growth Doctor podcast. Be sure to leave a review and tell other women about the podcast. Let's support each other. Find the full transcript for this episode on your favorite podcast app and learn more at thepositivegrowthdoctor.com. And be assured, you are not alone on your journey.